I am a union woman as brave. I do not like the bosses, and the bosses don't like me. Join the NMU, join the NMU, join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. I was raised in old Kentucky, Kentucky, born and bred. When I joined the NMU, well, they called me a Russian Red. Join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. Join the NMU, join the NMU. My husband asked the boss for a job, and these is the words he said. Bill Jackson, I can't work you, sir, 'cause your wife's a Russian Red. Join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. Join the NMU, join the NMU. These is the worst times that I have ever saw. You get shot down by gun thugs, you get framed up by the law. Join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. Join the NMU.
This is Maxine Doogan with the KPFA Labor Collective. I'm with the Erotic Service Providers Union and Organizing Committee through the San Francisco Labor Council. We're talking with Daisy Anarchy from Sex Workers Organized for Labor, Human, and Civil Rights. Daisy was involved in organizing the Lusty Lady Theater into the first unionized strip club in the United States. The Lusty Lady Theater is now a worker-owned co-op union shop organized through SEIU 790. Welcome, Daisy.
Thank you, Maxine.
Daisy, can you tell us about the organizing of the Lusty Ladies?
Well, dancers from other dance clubs in San Francisco had already been meeting at SEIU 790, that's Service Employees International Union, Local 790. We had been meeting there discussing our organizing activities around other dance clubs, and the Lusty Lady dancers came to meet with us because they were having an issue where customers were coming in and filming them behind one-way glass. And one-way glass is such that the customers could see the dancers, but the dancers couldn't see the customers and therefore couldn't see that they were being videotaped. And the videotape was showing up on the internet. So the dancers wanted the employers to remove the one-way glass and make it two-way glass so that they could see the customers and be able to tell if they were being videotaped, and the employers refused to do that. And we said to them, do you think you can organize a union here? Do you have enough support within the Lusty Lady to organize a union? And they said yes, and actually they did. It was a long struggle. It was a lot of hard work. But with the support of SEIU 790 and all the dancers pulling together, and also support staff that was very supportive at that time as well, too, they successfully organized a union shop. And then they organized a union, and then when they successfully fought for a better contract later on, the owners said that they were going to close the club, and the Lusty Ladies, again with the support of the union, organized to buy the club. And so now the Lusty Lady Theater is a workers' co-op union shop.
That's great. So one of the advantages of being a union member is having access to a grievance process. And I know that traditionally the National Labor Relations Board is also a place where grievances can be brought by workers, in particular dancers and dance clubs. Can you tell the audience about your experience with the NLRB?
Well, the National Labor Relations Board is a place where you can take what are called unfair labor practices. There's a whole list of things that are considered unfair labor practices. Unfortunately, the National Labor Relations Board is run by whatever administration in Washington is in control. And so we've got a Republican-run National Labor Relations Board right now. So, for example, I've brought some very strong unfair labor practices that were very clearly violations of the National Labor Relations Board Act. And for example, we had one of the managers from the Market Street Cinema showed up to one of our organizing meetings at the union. He said he was there for the union meeting. I said, oh, hi, why don't you write down your name? He wrote down his name. There were several witnesses. I told him that he had to leave because, for them to send a manager to a organizing meeting, a union organizing meeting, is unfair labor practice in that it's surveillance and it's intimidation. So I had his name. He was admitted that he was there for the union meeting. I went to the NLRB, filed the charge, and the Market Street Cinema said, "Oh, we don't know who that man is." Well, lo and behold, when the police went in against our wishes because we didn't want them to be arresting any of the dancers, and they did charge the dancers as well, to our sorrow and dismay, when the police went in and did a raid on the Market Street Cinema, one of the main people charged, his name was in the newspaper, asked the manager of the Market Street Cinema, Tony King. So now we're having to ask the NLRB to do a fraud case. But, it's things like that. There's some very fabulous advocates in the National Labor Relations Board working for the NLRB in San Francisco, but they've got the Republicans in Washington controlling the NLRB, and it's a huge problem nationally for all unions that the National Labor Relations Board, like other institutions in this country that are supposed to be helping workers, when we have a really Republican, big business favoring government in control, really becomes disabled.
Yes, I know that one of the other places where dancers have brought grievances is in civil court. Can you talk about one of the recent civil actions that were brought by supposed dancers that actually ended up with a decision that favored the dance club owners?
Well, several years ago, some lawyers out of Las Vegas actually filed a class action suit against 4 Deja Vu clubs in San Francisco. And they're usually with a class action suit. When we've had pro-labor lawyers in San Francisco filing a class action suit on behalf of dancers at the Mitchell Brothers in the past, for example, the women lawyers did everything they could to notify all the dancers that they were part of this class. And through being part of the class, they had the potential to get their back wages that had not been paid to them and money that had been illegally taken from them in the form of stage fees to be returned to them. And the women lawyers worked very hard to make sure all the dancers knew that, were notified and knew that they could collect their monies illegally taken and monies not paid to them. And what happened in this case was there was really not proper notification at all, which really, and there was a $555,000 settlement. The lawyers took about $355,000 of that. The 2 named plaintiff dancers got about $10,000 each. There were a couple other dancers that got $2,500 each. And then they had all this money left over. And they said, okay, we're going to appoint a special master, a woman named Isabella Grant, who used to be a judge, who was had a suit filed against her when she was a judge for presiding over a class action suit in which there was not proper notice to the plaintiffs. She was told that she could take $400 an hour out of this class money, which was supposed to be the woman's wages. Money's not paid to them, and money's illegally taken from them when they were working at these 4 clubs with horrendous working conditions on Broadway, Deja Vu clubs that include coercion into prostitution, rapes and sexual assaults happening in these illegal booths, extortion of many different kinds by the dance club owners. This judge, this retired judge who was a friend of the judge who presided in this class action suit, Robertson, Isabella Grant was going to take $400 an hour out of this money to decide who to give the money to. And she was going to give it to other organizations to give out scholarships to women. So and I contacted her and said, look, women didn't know, there was never proper class notification. We'll help you notify the dancers for free so the dancers can come and get their wages and get their monies that were illegally taken from them. It's not appropriate that it goes to other women for, even if they're sex industry workers, for scholarships. And the whole point is that if the dancers don't know, if they're notified of this class action suit, notified that they're supposed to receive money back, then that empowers them to know that what the clubs are doing is illegal. And the other thing is that in the class action suit, part of the settlement was that the dancers would be called independent contractors. Well, the dancers are not independent contractors, and just because these Las Vegas lawyers that are supposed to be representing the dancers agree with the lawyers for the dance club owners that the dance club owners can call the dancers independent contractors, they're still not independent contractors, they're still employees. That's like, and for Judge Robertson to sign off on a settlement agreement like that is outrageous. It's like the lawyers deciding that, they're going to allow their clients to sell crack on Market Street, and the judge saying, oh, well, this is fine if you guys agreed on this. If something's illegal, the judge, they can't write it into a settlement agreement and have a judge, and the judge can't sign off on it. The whole thing is just an outrageous example of how every avenue that the dancers are trying to use in the face of the San Francisco Police Department not being as proactive as we would hope they would be, to put it mildly, to have, we're in the situation where we have a second generation of a district attorney who's refusing to do anything on behalf of the dance club owners. Every avenue that the dancers try to use to get help from quite often turns on them.
So I'm wondering, all the conditions that you have described for dancers, the coerced prostitution, the illegal taking of stage fees in order, in essence, making people, workers, dancers pay to work in the strip clubs. It just sounds like this is labor racketeering. Where are the feds on this issue, Daisy?
Well, the feds in San Francisco would be the U.S. District Attorney in San Francisco. He would preside and prosecute anything that the FBI would bring to him as Kevin Ryan. He was a campaign contributor of Terrence Hallinan, who was our district attorney for 8 years, who is now the Mitchell Brothers lawyer. The Mitchell Brothers is one of the main dance clubs in violation of labor and criminal laws, charging their dancers to work and having their dancers work in illegal private rooms.
Join the NMU, join the NMU. Our bosses ride fine horses and we walk in the mud. Their banner is a $sign and ours is striped with blood. Join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. Join the NMU, join the NMU. If you want to join a union as strong as it can be, join the dear old NMU and come along with me. Join the NMU, oh, join the NMU. Join the NMU right now, join the NMU.